well, just requesting permission from Lumpur to give some Dhamma reflections, and almost made a request to chant the Patimokkha by mistake. That would have been 45 minutes of chanting that you could have heard. Cool, dark, rainy evening here. Back in our full group practice for the third week of that, starting the third week of that today after a couple of days break. So we've been going since 5 this morning, and don't want to go too long tonight because we'll have an early morning again in the morning, but maybe just a few thoughts to finish the day, take into our slumber period. I think the theme that's kind of revolving around in my mind this evening is based on a weird kind of a weird dream that I had maybe 5 days, a week ago, that's been kind of rolling around in different ways in the back of my mind and sometimes in the forefront of my mind. And I can't remember much of it because I'm terrible about remembering dreams. I always tried when I was young to make a dream log and analyze them and remember them, and devised all sorts of ways to try and remember the dreams and waking up early. I just never could. They would all fade away very quickly, and it's still the same. But this dream, a few pertinent points stuck out, and it was kind of around a theme of density, of all things. And that somehow there was involvement of rebirth in different realms of existence, and how some realms are very dense, tight, constricted realms. Other realms are very light and airy, and almost, in fact, some of them are immaterial. With the qualities of density versus lightness was the major theme of that dream, and I woke up and in that kind of drifty post-dream state. It was in the middle of the night, and was just sort of experiencing and reflecting how it's the same as true. Of course, it's a metaphor for our own psychological mental states, being sometimes very dense and intense, and sometimes being very light and airy and light. So dense versus light, density versus lightness, and how the quality of our habits, the quality of our mental habits help condition this feeling of density and constriction versus lightness and release. And of course, wanting to favor one over the other, not only because of its pleasantness versus the unpleasantness of the dense ones, but also because they serve as a basis for relinquishment, release. So it's just, I've been kind of operating the past week or so since that dream, and even maybe before it with the retreat, of just operating less on a conceptual level here. I think the more time goes on, and the older I get, and the closer the end of life seems to be coming in my way, that I seem to be focusing less on concepts and thoughts, and even interesting ones and useful ones like suttas and the Dhamma, those kinds of things, but more on internal experience, because I realize, at least for myself, I think probably for everybody, that's where the suffering lies, is in that deep internal experience of the heart. And that's where we can find, hopefully, release from those, release from the suffering, again, satisfactoriness of life in the world. So it kind of, the experiences that I've been contemplating have been more along that deeper experience level of less words and more feeling, I guess, is probably one way to put it. And trying to put some of it into words so that I can communicate them in a reflection. But one of the qualities that's been coming up for reflection is holding as well as this density and lightness. And that holding is something that we do for either better or for worse. And that, when I think about holding and the quality of holding, the word in the Buddhist teachings, clinging comes to mind, clinging, upadana, grasping, holding. And it's a kind of holding that brings a lot of density in a way. It brings a lot of absorption into negative mind states. We get holding or clinging to views and opinions, holding or clinging to this sense, especially, the most dense one is this sense of self, this sense of me, holding tightly onto that and operating through that pretty much all the time until we get a little bit of wisdom and start to let that relax a bit. But the clinging, the holding to perceptions, to views, our opinions, and I even clinging, in a kind of a different way to sensuality. The quality is the result from that kind of holding being quite tight, quite knotted up. That sense of tense grasping to an idea, to a view, to a memory, to a story that we keep indulging in, personal stories, relational stories, all the ones that many of us, periodically get locked into, interactions that we've had, people that should have done something in a different way than what we would have wanted, getting locked in that kind of wrapping oneself up tightly in those kinds of mind states, and just the feeling that comes from that, of that kind of knotted up, balled up, constricted state of mind, very unpleasant, or in the realm of sensuality, it just be maybe not quite so tight and constricted, but kind of chaotic and agitated, and distracted. Those qualities being dense states of mind, dense rebirths in a way. But the same word, holding, can also be applied in a skillful way, and I think of the word and the quality of mindfulness as the light form of holding. It's not that all holding is bad, but it's the underlying aspiration, the underlying quality of mind with the holding that makes all the difference. And mindfulness is a very, very skillful way of holding on to something. Mindfulness has to involve holding. It's holding something in mind, but it's holding things that lead to clarity, to peacefulness, to release, rather than to, negativity or confusion in the way that clinging can do. So holding of course, the teachings on the Satipatthana, holding those, bringing those to mind, bringing the body to mind, bringing the feelings and the different mental qualities not holding on to those particular qualities, but holding on to the mindfulness of being aware of what is actually happening and how we're responding and how we're using them either skillfully or if we're lost in those mental states, unskillfully. So bringing to mind that kind of clarity with the intent on understanding and release. This is a way. It's like the difference between, if you have your hand and you're grasping onto something tightly, and the pain and constriction that eventually comes with that grasping, but the same hand that's open and allowing the object to just rest in it. So there is still this holding, but it's not painful. It's just aware and alert and present. So we can hold in a way that leads to density, hold in a way that leads to lightness. So it's pretty obvious to me which one I want to focus on. So noticing, making a determination, noticing those mind states when they come upon us, to say, oh, okay, the mind is getting constricted. This is probably a sign of grasping in some way or another, of moving into this kind of constricted mental state. Can I drop that? Can I find a skillful way, without pushing it away, to just experience it with mindfulness, that lightness of holding, in a way that just allows it to be seen clearly? Another pair of qualities, kind of similarly, that has come up and triggered, I think, by a talk that I was listening to from Ajahn Sucitto about the same kind of relationship with belief and faith, and the fact that they have some very similar qualities to them, these kind of mind states that are based on some sort of conviction, in a sense, but one with a skillful result and one with more of generally an unskillful result. So belief being that quality of mind that leads to clamping, kind of a clamping down of the mind, a constriction, clamping down and constricted mind state, whereas something like faith leads to a sense of freshness and vitality, aliveness, energy. And you can just sort of see how they're similar qualities, and sometimes people get them confused with each other, but how they kind of manifest in many ways. And one thought, a memory came to mind when I was thinking about this, about belief, in just a little conversation I had, and it was actually it was quite a few years ago. A good friend of ours, a Thai supporter who has been with the community a very long time. And a while back she came up to me and she said, an experience I had, I wanted to ask you about or check with you about. It was an acquaintance of hers who went to one of the monasteries, I'm not sure exactly where, somewhere down in the Bay Area, to make a food offering to the monastic community. And she got there in the afternoon, and she was telling our friend this story. She got there in the afternoon, and the monk who was there wouldn't receive the food offering because it was in the afternoon. And, what she said is that her response to the monk was, well, this is your duty to receive my offering so I can make merit. This is what you're supposed to do. Otherwise, I won't be able to make the merit of offering directly to a monk. And then our friend here was relating this, and she was saying when her friend was telling her this story, she was getting extremely agitated and very irate, and said, that monk, he's a bad monk because he wouldn't receive the food and let me get the merit from doing that. And our friend didn't really respond, but she came up and asked me, she says, well, what am I supposed to make of that? What do you think? Is that true? Is that something that is the case? And she said, how would you have responded to this person? And I said, well, to be honest, not knowing who she is, but, my immediate thought is that I would say to her, well, the demerit from trying to get a monk to break his precepts is going to way outweigh the merit of giving, an offering of food at the wrong time of day. And that, actually you can see that in the mind state that resulted from her not being able to do that. And our friend said, well, yeah, that's kind of what I thought, but it was really hard to say something like that. So just the strength of belief and how grasping onto an idea like that is really results in a very clamped down kind of negative mind state. Whereas you see, people coming to make offerings at the right time of day, of course, in the morning, and just the lightness and buoyancy and the delight that results from not holding the same kind of action in such a ritualistic kind of a way. I mean, I think the first example is a real clear example of Silabhata Paramasa, the attachment to rites and rituals, thinking that it automatically gives some sort of boon or merit, even if forcing some person to break their precepts. So just looking at the quality, the faith quality versus the belief quality, or you can see it in, even stronger, more consequential ways in the world with religious belief, fundamentalist religious belief. It's the basis for so much conflict and so many wars and violence. Whereas the fresh, light kind of faith from somebody who has a strong conviction in their faith, but doesn't grasp it or hold it or try and impose it, but uses it for the benefit of oneself and the rest of the world. It's easy sometimes as a Buddhist practitioner to point to other religions and talk about certain kinds of fundamentalism in relation to other religions, but I think we also have to look at our own fundamentalist beliefs that we sometimes have in the Buddhist world, and in the very kind of more gross ways, in some areas of the world, some countries, Buddhist countries, that those beliefs, those fundamentalist beliefs, are strong enough to incite violence in some political applications of Buddhism, even by monks, unfortunately. So, we have to be careful about casting aspersions to other religions. But yeah, just to even if it doesn't lead to violence, just how our own fundamentalist beliefs, Theravada Buddhism versus Mahayana Buddhism, and how, we can say, oh, well, Theravada is the original teaching. It's the one that came directly from the Buddha. The other schools of Buddhism came later and had additions and and aren't the real thing, or don't have as much value. So we can be kind of fundamentalists sometimes in our own views, or, conversely, members of other Buddhist traditions can do the same thing. Theravada's the Hinayana, the lesser vehicle, kind of the selfish way to enlightenment. So, we need to be wary of that, and how that is not faith, that's belief. And it leads to that kind of clamped down, dense state of mind, whereas a joy in the practice and a joy of, in whatever form it takes, if it takes people to understanding and to peace, to relinquishment, release, then it's something to be very much appreciated and inspired by, and allowed to develop one's faith around that. So in a way, it kind of also, for me, ties into how we apply our energy, and in what direction we apply our energy, the parami of virya energy. And that sometimes we think of that kind of virya application of energy as a very engaged, forceful kind of rising up with a lot of determination to apply and expend one's energy in the practice, taking up many different kinds of practices with vigor and intensity, and that's what virya means. And in some cases that might actually be the right approach. But I was also appreciating Ajahn Sucitto's reflections that in many ways it's actually more of a energy balancing or energy management that is the appropriate use of the word virya. And that there are some things that we need to set boundaries around in terms of our energy. So if it's that kind of misapplication of energy, like in those situations I was talking about, where we put unwise attention into certain practices that with an unwise motivation, or just get lost in the energetic pursuit of thoughts and feelings and emotions and stories that wind up moving us into those dense states of experience over and over again, that's kind of an unwise application of energy. We can waste and spend a lot of energy attending to our perceptions and our feelings and our thoughts in unskillful, in ways that result in unskillful patterns or reinforce unskillful patterns, and that actually is an energy drainer. We really use up a lot of our resources with this kind of unwise attention to unskillful mind states or memories that lead to unskillful mind states, and that we need to draw boundaries around those. So sometimes management of energy, management of virya, is one of not engaging, not restraining, and because we don't want to spend our energy and just become exhausted to the point where the only alternative is to annihilate ourselves in sleep or drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, our choice of annihilation. So that there are the skillful boundaries, but then the wise application of attention, wise attention, yoniso manasikara, to objects that, or reflections or thoughts that produce energy, that are energy increasing. All the ways that we can attend to the opposites of the unskillful attitudes, the attitudes of the parami, just sort of talking about the kindness and compassion and understanding, wisdom, all the different positive qualities that open and clarify our experience and lead to a sense of widening and release rather than constriction and tightness and holding. So wise attention to that which opens up the energy, opens up the ability to hold things. That's virya, and then kind of moving into adhitthana, that kind of determination to keep at it, to not determination in kind of a fixed, unmovable, blinded persistence, but that kind of adhitthana commitment to opening and relaxing the mind state, to pursue the skillful, the determination to not get entangled with that which is going to lead us into tightness and difficulty. So it's kind of a strong determination to be light, if you will, a firm determination to hold things with clarity and lightness and ease, and to just notice when we're not doing that and the effect that has in our heart and our energy, and to notice when we can keep that open relinquishment of difficult mind states and the moving into taking up the ones that result in skillful mind states. I also just was listening to a Ajahn Sumedho talk just yesterday, and Ajahn Sumedho is always a great one to listen to if you need to kind of just loosen up and open up a little bit and kind of move out of a constricted mind state. And because, as in the talk that I was listening to yesterday, so much of his emphasis, re-emphasis over and over again is just attending to the way things are right here in the present moment. I don't know how many times in that talk that I was listening to yesterday he said, it's like this, and pointing to that open awareness as really the ultimate practice, the final practice. I mean, most of us can't just plant ourselves right into open awareness and be able to accept everything as it's happening, as it's like this, consistently as Luang Por Sumedho can. But it's a great reflection because it kind of cuts through a lot of messy, entangled thinking and trying rationalizing our experience and just say, oh, well, whatever it is, it's like this. It's the way it is, and constantly moving to that sense of non-grasping, non-intensity, non-density, just lightening things up by widening our ability to hold whatever it is that's coming through our experience, because we don't often have a lot of control over our past habits and tendencies as they manifest into the moment, but we do have that ability to learn to gradually loosen up the tightness, the density with which we're responding to our experience, and to just move into that kind of open acceptance, one that's not spacey or dismissive, and doesn't try and annihilate unpleasant experience, but one that widens the field of our awareness, of our consciousness, to be able to hold it in a way that doesn't move into reactivity, difficulty, resistance, but moves into even open awareness of things that are unpleasant or difficult. But in that actual release and opening to the wider picture, that in itself is the cure. So just some encouragement to notice the quality of the mind states as they arise, and to find when we're getting wrapped up in confusion or entanglement or density, to really allow ourselves to relax, open up, shift our attention to things that produce energy and lead to a lightness of our experience rather than a absorption into the difficulties. So I'll leave that for this evening's reflection.